Thanks for joining us today. And before we get started, let's take a quick look at some of the sights and scenery and foliage that we saw on the way to today's exploration. Welcome to Ohio City, Colorado, one of Colorado's newest ghost towns. It's considered a semi-ghost town and resides in the Quartz Creek Valley, just a few miles away from the more populated town we saw a moment ago, Pitkin, Colorado. Many of the original homes remain, but the main street has suffered losses due to fire and collapse, except for this building and the City Hall, which we'll look at in a moment. This building's actually a lot older than it appears. It dates back to the 1800s and has had an operating business since 1903. It was originally called the Hendricks & Company General Merchandise Building. For the most part, it served as the town's general store, but it got a huge upgrade in the early 2010s when John and Pat Swatzel purchased the property. The Swatzels wasted little time in renaming the store. They renamed it the Mother Lode because that's exactly what they intended it to be. They built on it to the point that barely any of the original structure is visible due to all of the additions and improvements they added. They transformed this small, rugged, and rural building into a huge, multi-use, welcoming property, one that acted as an oasis for the community, travelers, campers, and locals on their way to the ski resorts. The section of the building we're looking at now is the original general store. They essentially built everything on top of and around this particular building. Once all of their improvements were complete, the building was equipped with a general store, 2 apartments, a liquor store, a gift shop, a restaurant, and a bar. Not to mention, they added 10 RV hookups, a septic system, and outbuildings. This was, and still is, the most well-equipped building within 3 towns, maybe even a few counties. This wasn't John and Pat's first go at owning a Western restaurant. In fact, before they opened up shop here in Ohio City, they owned the largest restaurant in Cheyenne, Wyoming, the Mayflower. John was able to leverage his contacts in Louisiana and Wyoming to develop a shipping method that delivered fresh fish to the Mother Lode every 2 weeks. To offer fresh fish in the Rockies was, and to some degree, still is a treat. Customers recall the restaurant as being an amazing experience in the backcountry of Colorado. They raved about the fresh flounder and jambalaya, which was made daily. Unfortunately, in 2016, the Mother Lode closed its doors, and ushering in with it the first semi-abandoned or ghost town status for Ohio City in over 114 years. Here we see the Ohio City City Hall, which has been beautifully restored. I mean, this is really rare to see. It actually still has the tin siding here that is made to mimic brick, but it's actually just a thin sheet of tin that wraps around the entire facade of the building. Just a few years ago, this building was leaning, had broken windows, and was getting ready for collapse. But thankfully, in 2012, Gunnison County applied for and received a grant from the Colorado State Historical Fund. These funds were primarily used to fix up this building, as well as the Ohio City Jail and schoolhouse. Anything that used these funds got one of these great little placards here. Something interesting that I saw was this list of names that at first I thought was donors, but then I realized it has birth and death dates and is in memory of. None of the signage explained it. We can tell this was added after the 2012 funding and upgrades because old photos from the 80s show it sitting squarely on the ground. This is because in 2014, they actually lifted the entire building off the ground, put new foundations underneath it, and then set it back where it was. This is why today it's elevated and we now have modern wheelchair ramps around the building. If you have any idea what the names and dates represent on the porch, I'd really love to know. But regardless, their efforts have left us with this beautifully restored City Hall. Now, today, it doesn't act as a governing body or have any elected officials that operate out of it, but it is available for rent, although I doubt it gets rented very often. Ohio City got its start in the 1860s when gold was discovered in the region. Interestingly, the location and source of the gold nuggets that were discovered remain unknown. However, the elusive source of gold ran dry in just under a decade, and that was the last period that this town was completely abandoned. Ohio City saw its second coming in 1879 when an assayer named Jacob Hess found silver in Gold Creek. Jacob promptly renamed the creek Silver Creek, and with that action, he kicked off a population boom once more in Ohio City. The very next year, the Denver, South Park, and Pacific Railway built its way through town. However, in 1893, the price of silver collapsed, and the town quickly followed suit. In 1895, it was once again declared deserted. Fortunately, in 1896, a new source of gold was found, and around and about that time, this schoolhouse was built. The original schoolhouse was a one-room log cabin. This structure replaced it in 1897. School only operated for 3 months out of the year during winter. This schoolhouse was continually operated until 1961. For the last 9 years, the school was operated by Margaret Flick, who for a time turned it into a regional museum. However, in April 1988, the school board sold the building to the Quartz Creek Improvement Association, who owns it to this day. You would never guess by looking at it that this building's 122 years old. And for 64 of those years, it was the town's school. It's amazing that this thing is in such great condition. And yes, it did benefit from the 2012 funding that was granted by the Colorado State Historical Fund. During the 1896 gold boom, one of the most significant investments in the area was created, the Willow Creek Mine, which still operates to this day, although at a different capacity. It now mines for common gems, quartz, feldspar, graphite granite, and the smallest imaginable flakes of gold. This illustrates to me just how few people are needed to operate a modern mine, and this is most evident when you consider that the mine is still open, but Ohio City is nearly deserted. Many other mines were operated in the area. However, between 1906 and 1912, all but one were closed, giving rise to unemployment, crime, and necessitating this jail. The Ohio City Jail is one of the oldest original buildings remaining, and is also on the County Historical Preservation list. It consists of 2 cells in the back of the building. You can see one of the doors there. The cells are approximately 3 by 5 feet, and even for people that were a little bit shorter at the time, that's not very much room. In fact, not much to even lay down in these cells. Both had windows with bars protecting from escape, as you'll see here. In fact, as the town entered the Great Depression, they were considering adding on to the jail and the sheriff's deputy force. When in 1936, the entire region had a boost to its economy, when the Work Progress Administration, the WPA, issued a construction grant for $20,000 to build the Monarch Ski Resort. Projects like this were common during the Great Depression and were a good way to put people back to work. The town was able to succeed off of its one mine and proximity to the local ski resorts for decades to come.
Yesterday, we were on our way, but November came, and I wish it was yesterday. Yesterday, we were on our way, but November came, man, I wish it was yesterday.
On a personal note, I believe Ohio City can come back. It's really struggled since 2016 and when the Mother Lode had to close. But I believe even the Mother Lode could be brought back at a reduced capacity with maybe a slightly different product offering or a less complicated LLC structure. Bringing business back to this town is the first step to bringing it back from the brink. And at this point in time, I'd usually find something to encourage you to come and visit and support the town. But at this point, the largest sign in town is even a private residence. For the time being, all the town can offer is a lovely walking tour.
Yesterday.